Look, I'm using my recordings of 2 or so years ago. I'm checking them through so that I can publish them on YouTube and I'm using them as a springboard for my current thinking and analysis, and therefore my current production of recordings. So the two are running together. So you're presented with sometimes, quite often, an original recording of a couple of years ago, and then other recordings that I'm adding to that. I either put a note at the end of the recording and publish it as such, or I produce a separate recording which I publish close to it in time, probably in the same batch that I shove through the computer, so to speak. So it's almost like two people working on it, me as I was a couple of years ago, me as I am now. And I'm not claiming there's some wonderful consistency about this. I am claiming they're related, and in a sense they're talking to each other. It's a bit one way though, isn't it? A bit like the way I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you, but I'm not receiving your talk back. And with the two strains of recordings that I'm doing at the minute, one is already written, it's influencing me, but I can't influence it because it's in the past. So I'm recording, what I'm feeling now. My response to this person I'm listening to of the past, whom to some extent I stand a good chance of understanding because I was him a couple of years ago. But sometimes I hear something and I think, did I really say that? Wow, I remember saying that. That's a good point. Could enlarge on that. In other words, it really does speak to me. I'm very pleased with myself, I know that. Yes. I'm sorry about that, but not so sorry I'm going to stop it, because it's giving me the drive and the enthusiasm to keep going. Because, of course, I can't talk to you direct. That's what I really need. I need your company. You see, we long for fellowship. And if we don't have it, we make it. And you could say, yes, that's how God comes into existence with secular man. He finds he's alone. He needs company. And of course, being a child of God, he makes it. He calls God into existence. Because that's who you are. You are a child of God. It's very natural for you to fill in the gaps where needed. Do you see? If God never existed, man would make him in the end. If he survives long enough, of course. At times that looks like touch and go, doesn't it? But it's because we are children of God. We are creative. We are incredibly creative. We make our reason for living. Whoa. Some do it, they make their reason for living racing motorbikes. Others give that up after a while and say, perhaps I can do something better than this. Something a bit safer, perhaps. Something the wife might be a bit happier about. I'll miss it though. I did like racing motorbikes. And so, of course, he teaches his kid to drive a motorbike. Oh, my goodness, no, says the wife. drives her to more earnest, deep prayer. I'm, of course, talking about some friends of mine. Bless them. Thank you, Dad. You may say, Marshall, this is a man with a broken heart. In loneliness, creating a friend. I'll tell you, I think you're right. I'm sure you're right. And I'm flying. Yeah, but is it true? I tell you it works. If your truth doesn't work, what good is it to you? Mine works. It's like my diet. I don't care what the explanation for a fruit diet is. Try it and see. Is your illness much improved? Is your spiritual life much improved? Are you feeling much better? Does it work? If it doesn't, fine, throw it out the window. If it does, there'll be nothing stopping you, will there? You won't need me to give you the explanation. It works. That's what counts. Now, I think your cynicism is actually right. And perhaps it's not cynicism, perhaps it's genuine sympathy, empathy, concern. I don't know. But the point is, you're right. That's what matters. It works. What's it since Jesus came into my life? And I think it was my second wife, and I'm not sure, it might have been the first. Said, I've had nothing but trouble and strife. Because that was the reality of following the Christian religion. It can be a nightmare at times, especially these so-called fellowship. But when you do find what works, there's nothing stopping you. Bless you. Thank you, Dad. Oh, look, let me put a few notes in. I was putting the dates on the original recordings, but now I'm just putting the number, if I've got it, and I usually have, of the recording, and not the original date following it, because I found that where I transferred recordings from one file to another, it had put the new date of transfer on rather than the original date of recording. So I can't say what the original date of recording is, except in as far as it's inferred from its number order in time, chronological order anyway, gives you that. Yeah. And in passing, I should say, it may be a bit confusing having two sort of lots of recordings being fused together like this. But it's not meant to be me teaching, is it? It's anything that will be a blessing to you as regards aiding your consciousness of God. This is life eternal, to know thee, to be conscious of you, aware of you, to know you. What helps in that regard? Something that keeps my mind on you, or close to you, or talking to you, or listening to you, or wondering. It holds my attention like meditation may not, because our mind is like a wild horse's and wander anywhere. We don't train well to sit. We're used to living, moving, relating, thinking. We're alive. I was unusual in that I could, well, I know many people have got with a book and just them and the book, isn't it? Whether it was a philosophy or fiction or religion, and perhaps there's not that much difference between them. So we can do it. The modern way is listen to a talk because, well, we don't need to burden the person with keep giving the talk to different people. They give it once, like here, and then anyone who does care to listen to it can. It's quite wonderful, isn't it? I'm a great fan of YouTube, although I'd probably shudder to see what's also on it from my point of view. But then they would be appalled at my point of view as well. However, I pride myself on coming from very secular beginnings and being not that far removed from what the world has to cope with. Bless him. Thank you, Dad. And I just wanted to add that I was maimed at the age of 3.5. I slipped on the kitchen floor. The legs stopped growing and had an operation at the hospital when I was in TB sanatorium and so on for 1.5 years. And it slightly maimed the right leg. Sufficient not to be at all good in any way in sport or running. I don't mean I couldn't run, but nothing like, I was in the tail end always, poor runner. And couldn't do gymnastics, a lot of that. Oh my goodness, no, that was a nightmare to me. I don't mean it was pain, just meant I couldn't do it. And that was a great blessing to me, of course. Else, if I'd been good at sport, who knows, I might have just loved being a tennis player, given my height and reach and so on. And my reactions were fast, to say the least. We tried a test in our science class one day. I was about 14 or 15. I was the fastest by a mile in reactions. But anyway, enough of blowing my trumpet. I was blessed by being slightly maimed, you see. And I still am. I can't truly run round the lake. Partly I've had back trouble as well. Not so much in recent times, but through many of the decades of my life. It's quite severe at times. And I hadn't run for about 30 years. Perhaps a bit more. And I don't really run now. I walk quickly. I glide along. I don't run past people. I stop when I see anyone coming because I know I'm not running as I should run. But you wouldn't know I had a problem unless I told you. It's not that obvious. Unless I was trying to run. But it's been a blessing. Perhaps if I'd been the great success at something rather more mobile, I'd have been less academic. And the academic calling was phenomenal to me. I think partly because I was so poor at school up to about the age of 12, that to suddenly be a success at it was wonderful. And I shot through the classes to the top. And then at college and then university. It's a great success story from my narrow point of view, you understand. So pleased. Thank you, Dad. And of course, again, it's like losing 3 wives. each wife I lost meant I could enjoy the next. I mean, that was pretty good in itself, wasn't it? Fancy falling in love and then falling in love again. I mean, really. Yes, thank you, Lord. And so I hadn't had a relationship since my third wife. And I'm flying. That is a blessing too. I've never been more involved in, well, quite simply thinking about God. Yeah, I think that's the simplest way of saying it. Might sound frighteningly religious, but that's it really.